It's taking its time, Lily.
It is.
'Cause it's Monday. I'm not used to working. Okay. Great.
Okay, it is 6:37. Let's call this puppet to order. We don't have any public here. So we're not taking any public comments. Okay. Let's launch right into it.
All right. Okay, so I've given you all a little packet. The first page is what we did back in March. Well, the first 2 pages is what we did earlier this year to do a 2026 projection. The second page is the third page is an hours proposal. The fourth page will discuss an executive session. And the fifth page is a overview of the proposed 2024 budget. I'm going to share screen, Ethan, so that you can see what the canoodles we're talking about.
What did you say the last page was? An overview?
So essentially
It's going to be like the budget that we present.
this is what we're going to work on.
Okay.
But this is my suggestions. I met with Kiri and Claire 2 weeks ago.
Something like that, week and a half ago. Yeah.
So this is what we came up with. But the first page is pretty straightforward. It's what we came up with previously. And the second page is a continuation of that 2026 projection. The only thing I want to note on this is as we go through comparisons, we based the 2026 projection off of current operations. So one of those questions was about library hours, which I'm going to get into next. So this does not account for any changes in hours. So as we go into the next phase, obviously there'll be changes, particularly in payroll. So we'll just get into that first. I propose 4 options in terms of hours. Ethan, can you see? Okay.
I can. Thank you.
Okay, great. So these are the 4 proposals. I know it's a little crooked on your side, Ethan. My scanner was being crooked today. It's Monday.
It looks perfect.
Okay, awesome. So obviously the top one being our current operations, and then phasing out 3 potential options all the way up to a maximum weekly hours of 48. I know somebody here is going to ask me what Stanfordville does for hours and other comparing libraries. I think Stanfordville's at 55 hours a week. Clinton is in the 40, I want to say 40 or maybe 38 to 40. Northeast Millerton's 42. If you want that breakdown of their hours, I can get that to you. I just didn't think to prepare it until last night and just kind of glanced at it. So in terms of impact to the budget, this obviously depends a lot on wages, which we'll discuss in executive session, but this will obviously up the anticipated payroll expenses going forward for the next 3 years. So I'll give you my personal recommendation, and I'm going to give you my professional recommendation. My personal recommendation is that the patrons would really like to see probably a minimum of proposal 2, which opens a few more days a week at the 10 o'clock hour range. As we know from the feedback from our community survey, we had a large number of people, I think it's about 46%, asked to be open more hours in the mornings. This is about the maximum I think that we could reasonably do to accommodate that. My professional opinion, however, is given after doing projections for the next 3 years and looking at our budget and making sure that we maximize the most out of this Chapter 414 initiative, I think financially it would not be smart to do anything beyond just reopening Mondays. So proposal 1, sorry. So I think proposal 2 might be a stretch by the time we get to 2026 in terms of being able to cover it, but we can run those projections. I just can't run those projections until I know what percentage of wages we're going to increase across the board And we'll have to discuss that in executive session today. But once we break out of executive session and I have those numbers, I can do the projection sheets live for you because I have the Excel document. It takes 2 clicks to put everything in so we can see them as they go. But
I imagine it's easier to continue to extend the hours than to dial back the hours. So perhaps a more conservative approach is.
Right.
and then so
And also, well, I guess depending on what happens as well. So
and it could note that even though this would only reopen Mondays, it is reopening at 2 extra hours than what Mondays were opened at previously. So previously Mondays were only 2 to 6, so this is 12 to 6. So to our current hours, it's still an extension of 6 hours a week. To the previous hours, even it's still an extension of an extra 2 hours a week at 38 hours. There is a slight expansion you could do on that same line that wouldn't impact the budget. It's like a couple $1,000s for the whole year, maybe about, I think it was like 4,000, and that would be to do Saturdays 10 to 4, which is just an extra, that puts you right at around 40 hours of operation a week.
so in addition to the Monday.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the only, but I don't really know. I used to be able to say Saturday was our slowest day. The last 2 months that has not been the case. I don't know if that's just summer or what.
It rains constantly here.
Yeah.
What were we previously? I mean,
2 to 6. Well, when I started here, it was Tuesday through Friday, 2 to 6, and then Saturdays 10 to 2.
so total hours were.
So no mornings, basically.
Times.
Previously.
We had no mornings previously.
No, that's when Veronica was here.
Well, that was COVID too.
Oh, okay.
So when I started here was COVID. Previous to that, we had kind of a wonky schedule. I don't know if you remember it, Ted, but it was, I mean, we were open to 9
Yeah.
one night,
Yeah.
or
It seems to me we were open Mondays too.
we previously were open Mondays pre-COVID. I know that. But I don't remember what the actual hours are. I find little bookmarks and they all had different hours. So I don't know what it really was. We're 2 to Tuesday through Fridays, 4 days.
Is there demand for that 2-hour increase on Saturdays?
Sometimes yes, sometimes it's dead.
Hmm.
It's pretty mixed. I wouldn't say that anybody's requested it in
Okay.
terms of like active demand, but I remember we were open till 4 last year. I think we dialed back Mondays and closed to 2 on Saturdays. So previously we were open till 4 at one point. And I mean, it got usage. It wasn't, but I mean, Saturdays are really either it's busy or it's dead. There's no in between there
Right.
with Saturdays. It's either we have like 4 people or we have 40. There's really no mix in between. So Saturdays are kind of a hard gauge.
My feeling about this is that we start out with proposal 1, truthfully. We need to keep in our minds what's going to happen in 3 years. And then how are we going to sell, needing an increase that's beyond cost of living. So we want to like hold something back, not, we're giving them, like, we're increasing hours, and if there's a way to do it more, we should do more, but I think there's always, like a kind of like get people like, and I don't want to make that sound like I'm being, like cruel.
Right.
Like, but the truth is that right now they're not used to us being open on Mondays, so let them get used to us on Mondays,
Right.
Our people are still complaining about us not having hours
In the
early.
morning.
What do
With
they
the-
want?
the
They want to
way-
drop books off, or
It's people that feel like noon is a bad time to
Mm.
open. It's that like
Uh,
by noon everybody's working and although at 10 o'clock, I mean, well, I guess it depends what job you're doing. I mean, most of this just came from the community survey. We didn't get a lot of, I mean, I do have people that want us that say they want us open earlier in the mornings. I think a lot of our older patrons want us open earlier in the mornings. I'm sure they want to come in, do their business, go home.
So early as 10, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we reasonably can do much
Mhm.
farther than that. And
Right.
in theory, I could shift the hours. So instead of being 12 to 6 open, 10 to what is that, 4,
Mm.
same amount of hours. But then I'm gonna have the people who really
Right.
rely on the library being
The
open the
afternoon.
extra hour after work and
Yeah.
getting up, you know, so then you can't please everybody at some
Right.
point.
Yeah.
Kids
Yeah.
after
At
school.
school,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for after school programming, that would kill us.
Yeah.
So I would-
Stanfordville is open Monday through Friday, 9 to 7.
Ciao.
How the hell are they paying for
7
this?
staff members.
7 staff members.
7
Wow.
staff members.
So they're
What about Saturday?
9 to 2. This is crazy. I can't even do the math.
I'm pretty sure it was in the 50s when I counted it.
That's 50, 55.
Yeah, okay.
Clinton Community Library, Monday, Tuesday, 9 to 5, Thursday, 9 to 5, Friday, 10:30 to 6:30, Saturday, 9 to 1. So they're
I mean, we're-
still in the 5 day.
We're on the lower end, and this is where the severity of our situation comes in because, I mean, people think I'm being exaggerating when I say that if we don't pass this budget, we're gonna be scraping by to meet minimum
Yeah.
requirements for the
Yeah.
state. We need to be open, I think, at least 24 hours per the state's guidelines. We're
Mhm.
open 32 right now, but you have to, if you start really having to nitpick that, 30,000 off the payroll budget is significant. I mean, that's a
Mhm.
whole staff member.
Right.
So it's, and I mean, compare Stanfordville staffing at 7, Northeast Millerton staffing at 5, Clinton staffing, I think she's got less people, but she has 2 full-timers. So your full-time equivalents, I mean, we're just not keeping up here. But I mean, that's not this budget initiative is going to help us catch up, but it's not
Yep.
going to solve all those problems.
Right, but that'll be the next time, you
Right.
know, but like. So like, yeah, we solved the immediate problem, which is the 6th day. And
Right.
the additional hours. We're then gonna have to figure out if the staffing can handle it,
Right.
what's gonna have to be adjusted, how we're gonna do that. Taking it in small
Strides.
doses
Pace yourself.
is,
Yeah. Pace ourselves.
and then in 3 years, we will have to do this again.
Yeah.
But then we will only need 25.
Yes. All right, so everybody's in agreement on proposal 1, because that'll make executive
Mm-hmm.
session a lot easier.
Yes.
All right, so then I'm gonna move down to the last sheet, which is the proposed, and I'm sorry, I had to jot in, and I still missed one. I still missed a 2024 that got left at the 2023. I'm so sorry. You get the point. It's in the title. So the payroll part of this, the personnel part of this, ignore. I used the mid-level number just when I met with Kiri and Claire just for guidance, but we'll go over that and then we'll finalize this document in executive session. We'll come out of executive session and I'll put it on the screen so that the public can see it if they go back and look at the video. But the gist of it is let's focus on the expenses right now. We'll go back and fix the revenue afterwards. Ted brought up that professional fees need to be at, it was 3176. I'd suggest just round that up to 3200 for next year. That was the only thing that got mentioned to me. So that's a $200 increase. Do you need a pen?
I do.
It's, how much did you say?
3200 for professional fees.
Yeah, got it. I totally cheated. I had to look and see what you were writing.
So I want to say that most of this was based off of the previous, what we did back in March. I just left the work that we did there into this budget. The reality is there might be a little bit of wiggle room in some of those projections because we were projecting out 3 years from now.
Mhm.
But the main parts of those come down, the main big changes are programs, materials, and staff.
Mhm.
So while there might be a little wiggle room, it's less than $5,000 of wiggle room still. So regardless, it just kind of ends up being easy because we did this whole workshop earlier this year. It's just
Mhm.
coming up with the final numbers for next year. I did suggest since we hired John to do the website, we projected, we talked about doing his additional fees for additional website maintenance, which he does at a monthly rate. I factored that into the website costs. It only came out to an extra $900 from what we were previously projecting to pay.
Mhm.
So if we want to continue forward with that contractual service, we still have him for the next 6 months for free regardless. But once that expires, if we want to continue doing that, it's not a huge blow to the budget.
Right.
And he takes care, that is including all of the shares of ISP management, the domain, everything else. So,
Which alleviates you from
right,
that.
so
or-
he manages all of that for us
Which is a double.
for an
cost.
extra $900 a year.
I think it's definitely worth it.
Yep.
So that was the first thing we did. The grant expenditures, we just didn't account for grants when we did 2020, the 2026 projection because we weren't sure. I know that this year we've almost doubled grants, and last year we did well on grants too, but I still think it's safe, it's smart to keep it conservative because you just don't know what grant opportunities are going to come up, what we're going to get approved for,
Mhm.
and things like that. So I'd rather just keep that at $5,000, and if we do more, great. If we don't, then we're not in trouble. The third change I made was collection materials. We had in 2026 proposed a materials budget of 18,000. I reduced that for next year down to 14,000. So a negative $4,000. And that's just so that we can phase out to that 18,000 mark by 2026 rather than doing it all at once. I should note that the change and increase from the town of Pine Plains, if the chapter 414 passes, is still not going to cover all of the budget. So we talked about increasing fundraising to up to $25,000. So any reductions in this is coming out of that fundraising for the first year, which just helps us see how much we can actually fundraise if we put a full back into a fundraising project. So it just gives us a little bit of buffer room rather than the first year out having to fundraise $25,000 out the gate when we've only been fundraising. Well, in the past, this past year is hard because we had that donation, that one hefty donation, but in the past, I think we were averaging around 11 to 14,000. Ted, does that sound about right? For donations and fundraisers. So, I mean, we're
talking about doubling that.
Yeah. So I think the first year out the gate, it would be good to have a little bit, not $25,000 that we have to come up with.
Of that 11,000, typically how much was donations? Do we know? Versus
For 2021, we haven't we
really
had-
done any major fundraising. It's all been pretty much donations.
Yeah, for 2021, we only did 3,000 in fundraising and more than 10,000 was donations. Ted, I don't have I do have 2022 in front of me. In 2022 last year, which was the first year really post-COVID, we did 4,000 in fundraising and again almost 10,000 in donations.
Okay.
So
How are you defining the difference between those two? What's fundraising versus what's donations?
So fundraising is any checks that come in for, if we did the silent auction, any funds raised from that. If we did the bake sale would have been included in that, and the cemetery tour.
tour.
So any active fundraising events that we actually did an event.
What about our postcard campaign that we did?
counts.
That would count as well.
Yeah.
So 10K in donations 2 years is just like Bluebird flew in the window.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
just people cutting, and I think we were getting I haven't seen that check come through this year. We usually got like a set 5,000 to 7,000 donation
Oh,
from
the
one,
Goldman guy.
yeah, from one donor. That was
I was
the,
speaking with him yesterday.
yeah, that's the major one. I haven't seen that check this year, but I know we got it in 2022.
Mhm.
Yeah, we got it last year. But yeah, so I just wanted to note that anything that we deduct out of here just comes out of our fundraising obligations for next year. So collection materials, 14,000 for next year. Programming expenses we had for proposed 2026. I know I'm doing a lot of talking here. We proposed 12,000. Again, I took the increase, divided it to 3 rounds, and I proposed 9,000 for next year. That still gives us a $1,500 increase from this year, which I think can easily spend, considering how active we've been with programming and how expensive it has gotten to get anybody out here to do programming. The other adjustment I made was supplies. Our copier expenses, we did more in half of this year than we did the whole year last year in copier charges. That's how much the printer is being used. So I doubled that. And then I doubled that expense, but this is an income expense. It's matched. So I think I expect $500 more in revenue of the copier usage than we actually spend on it. Obviously, that's for the time to help us in the time that we're going to have to replace the unit eventually, because it's getting so much usage. So. So copier charges I bumped up from $1,000 to $2,000. That's about on track of what we're doing this year. And then I did simultaneously increase the income line to reflect what we've been doing this year so far as well. And then left other supplies, which are office supplies, essentially at 2,000, which brings us to 4,000. Personnel will go through an executive session. With the exception of professional fees, which at Ted's suggestion, I'm bumping up, or suggesting we bump up to 3,200. And with all of that said and done, total expenses come out to $193,700 with an estimate for the payroll. Personnel will have to wiggle that out. And that would bring us to a fundraising support requirement of $17,800 for the first year.
Okay. And that's a little lower than what we're asking, but it's within eyesight.
Right.
Of it.
So the big things that we need here before we go into executive session to really discuss the personnel, so we can get those numbers figured out, is making sure that you guys are all fine with the website, which seems like we did, the changes in collection materials, the programming expenses, the supplies, particularly the copier supplies, and the professional fees.
I have some recollection that you were saying that you and Jen Chase they're not going to rely just on you for the programming next year, or is that not true? I thought you had some conversation with that.
We had some conversation that if the budget vote does not pass, that we would not be able to continue to support the program, because at least not to the same extent. Because to do one program for the 6 weeks of camp, each week for the 6 week of camp, those 6 programs, that cost us more than half of our programming budget. I think it came out to just under $4,000 this year, which is quite a bit more than it was in the past. But everybody's travel expenses have gone up, their fees have gone up to do that. So if it passes, I wasn't planning to take it away. It's a huge part of our summer reading program, and it brings a massive attendance, and it's well loved. But if it doesn't pass, that's the first thing I would suggest that goes, because it costs so much for us to do.
Right. Okay.
And maybe those people with children will be incentivized to vote differently next year.
Right.
Yeah.
And I have to say that it would be nice for them to figure out a way to kick in some of that money.
I have some insight to that, but I'm not sure it's appropriate to do right now.
No, but that's
Yeah.
fine. I appreciate that
Yeah, we
I
did.
wasn't recollecting exactly,
Yeah, I did just
Well, sorry.
forewarn her.
yeah.
So that conversation did happen because I
Right.
told her, I wanted her to be prepared that if it did not pass, that either we were going to limit that support or that we were going to eliminate it
Mhm.
completely, just to conserve our programming budget
Right.
because it just takes so much. So that was kind of the extent of the conversation. If you want more insight into the summer camp, I have that insight. It's just not something I want to bash over on this meeting.
Can I go back a second?
Yep.
In June of 2021, we got $7,000 from Goldman Sachs.
Yes,
A very nice person.
yes.
And then in 2022, it wasn't until, it was early, 5,000 in
It
February.
was 5,000.
So it's kind of all over the calendar, so.
I think there was like a match dependent on it, so it just kind of depended year to year. I
Yeah.
remember in 2021, it went up because there was like a note that it came up because they knew we were struggling with COVID. So I know that was part of it. But you said you're in contact with that person,
Mhm.
so
The struggle is still real.
it's always real. So with that, I figured we could break into executive session and discuss personnel. And I'll go over kind of the overview of that because at some point I'll have to step away from it as well. But for the first
Right.
half, I need to have some
Yep.
input there.
I think that's fair.
What about the grant from BB Barrett for some? You heard it?
No, I haven't this year. I sent her a note. I actually sent it because I wanted her to do it story time. So I did it in conjunction with I got an automatic reply for her assistant, but I can reach back out to them and see if they're willing to do it.
Take care.
Okay.
Yep.
Ethan, are you still there?
Good to see you.
Is he? Did we lose him?
No, just stop sharing. We
Oh,
lost.
we
him.
lost Ethan.
He's performing CPR. at
Yes,
some
he's
point, or
probably.
setting a leg,
Okay, so
removing some toddler's head who's caught in the crib.
I'm gonna mute this.
Are we're still in.
Yeah, we'll still be
Compliance,
live. I'm
yeah.
gonna
I just, yeah.
There's a microphone on there, so
Right.
it just defaulted, but,
Yeah,
um,
right. No, that's true.
I mean, programs are. I think kind of the point is that regardless of. If it doesn't pass, every line is gonna take a hit.
Okay,
And if
Okay.
it does pass, then every line is gonna increase.
okay, so then maybe it doesn't matter, so.
Yeah, I mean,
I
I'm,
just didn't want to
But
back
so
I
maybe-
was trying, I was just, what, I wanted to make sure that we didn't back ourselves into a corner. But if you don't,
Right.
if we don't think that's an issue, it doesn't matter to me, so.
yeah, I don't think that we'll. See too much. Pushback if we. Increase the program lining now with the expectation that it will pass, and then if it doesn't pass,
Okay.
because everything's gonna have to decrease.
Okay,
We'll have to make up 30,000 and.
Right, and we're gonna have to present this budget to the town, and if we only have 8,500 for
that's
fundraising
not
for
gonna
the
look good.
year is not gonna look
no,
good.
no,
We
you're
need-
right, you're
We
right.
need to make that number closer to what we're really thinking
Yeah.
we can do.
I mean, it puts us right on par for 2026, but I
Right.
think that we could. Here, just let me run it. So what if we just go ahead and say?
What did we raise this, not including the 50, what was this year? It's probably here, one of these sheets.
Hold on. I have a line collapsed here.
So it was 13 and it was 13 and 22.
We've raised 7,000 so far this year.
Yeah.
Minus the 50 that
Okay.
we've developed. I only hid this line because I didn't finish it at the bottom.
Yeah, I think that would be easy to,
So if we
so you put program
put 18
collection up to 18.
program, let's just do the 12.
Yeah,
And see
let's
what it comes
see.
out to.
Cause the other thing that. What
And that
Rebecca,
comes out to 15.
Yeah,
yeah, see, I think this
That
is a
looks better.
reasonable
Yeah,
budget
yeah,
for this year.
yeah.
And the truth is, I have no problem supporting the camp programs.
No, I know.
If we are constantly giving them all of our programming budget for the whole year,
Right.
it just hurts.
And then
Right,
that
it doesn't work
puts
for
us
the whole
right
community.
on track.
Yeah, I
It's
get it.
everybody,
It
yeah.
puts us right on track for fundraisers in 2026 at 25.5.
Perfect.
And I will say this, the original numbers I created were being conservative, but I mean, we have so much demand in materials that we're not meeting.
Right.
I promise you that money
Right.
can be
Well,
utilized.
we need to track out the increase of those budget lines for the next 2 years.
Do you want to do a 4% increase?
I think that's the reality of it is that.
Mm, And then the personnel already automatically does that up to 4%, right?
Okay.
So that puts us.
Okay, so
at-
that gives us a slightly larger number, but again, isn't crazy.
That's
It's
not
a crazy number.
unreasonable. $3,000 is not unreasonable.
Yeah. Okay. So we gotta ramp up the fundraising in 3 years to get to 30,000. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think we're kind of really right where we need to be. If we're asking for this money.
I think that for programs, I will tell you that makes a huge difference in actually being able to provide more things to the community for people coming out and doing
Right.
talks, because they charge $500-600 a
Yeah.
pop
Yep,
for those things. So
Well, yeah, and it's, we can't only be doing kids programming, we need to start doing more
Adult, yeah.
adult programming.
Mhm.
It's, I mean, the bicentennial is gonna go away and, you know, we'll need to kind of satisfy some.
Yeah.
Scratch, each the scratch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is pretty much
Okay.
it in terms of what we'll present at the next board meeting. I'll
Mhm.
probably just present this exact document. And
Right,
then everybody will have a chance to review, ask questions, and then we can vote on it. And if we approve it, we'll take it to the town board. If we don't approve it, then we'll come back to the drawing table and redo the process in September.
right.
So. All right, so that's it.
When are we expected to have it to the town board? When is it historically gone
Isn't
to
it like
the
October?
So they vote in October. Yeah.
October? Okay,
Yeah, they vote in, so we have to approve it at our August board meeting.
At
We
the
submit it
latest.
to them,
in September.
and I believe they vote on it in October. But obviously the vote won't be until November, so
Right.
we'll have to see what the results to that are, but we need to get a number from them as to what they anticipate being able to support us for.
Right,
Even if it's not the 166.9, we need a number,
right,
so. And then if it doesn't pass in November at the November board meeting, pretty quickly after that, if it doesn't pass
Mhm.
on November 7th, we'll need to quickly reconvene and adjust the numbers. I already have a draft ready,
right,
but we'll need to go through and adjust those numbers. And then at the November board meeting, we'll need to approve a budget quickly
right.
for the next year.
When I'm freshly back from my vacation.
Yes. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. Hopefully, we don't have to do that. We already have a budget. We're done. All right.
I got a
Okay.
bolt. Should we,
Somebody adjourn?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?